You have now entered the no friend zone. Shalom, 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 family. This is Elder Yara coming to you live today. We're going to be brief. We're going to have some fun today. Let someone know, man, that we're live. We're going to be doing some commentary and some review on young Pharooh's return to the HOK. Young Pharooh's return to the HOK. Shalom. Good evening to you, Sister Free Spirit. So the conscious community of HOK is just not going to talk about this. Y'all just not going to talk about young Pharooh's return, glorious return to the HOK last night on C.I.A's channel, C.I.A Studios. Shout out to C.I.A. So we just not going to talk about it. Y'all like, share, and subscribe. Absolutely. I feel you. I feel you, sis. I feel you. It it was I must say entertaining. It was intellectually and spiritually draining, but it was very, 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 very sad to see. Sad to see. I almost have to question Sonetta's motives outside of just wanting not just to create views, but to create these Don King like debates that I would say, in my opinion, the ones that I view have not been, they haven't held up to what I know many people have said that they have paid their monies for. And I get it, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm talking about the audience, the segment of people that you're marketing to that normally watch your show have not been really enthused by these debates. But I get that Sinetta reaching back to some of the old HOK fan favorites to a point. Who I must say, Sinetta has been instrumental in launching the careers, if we want to put it that way, careers of these people in the conscious community who've attempted to make careers out of these fringe theories. And again, welcome to the no friend zone. But a lot of these guys we see in Brother Polite, we see in, as we saw last night, our reintroduction to the HOK of young Pharaoh, these pseudorific pseudoscience scientists. That's right. These Sarah Sutansetis that Sinetta has been, I know he's been reaching out to for some time now, hoping and wishing, praying he could bring all of the friends, scholars back to the HOK. And we just have to admit, people, those of us who are watching must understand that it is a fringe theorist, it is a pseudoscientific platform. And the people that are held over there by the people in that audience are people who follow pseudoscience and fringe theory scholarship, if you want to call it that. It just is what it is. They're not interested in the fact. They're not interested in logic. They're not interested in education, right? Normative education, or academia. They're not interested in that. They have what the Bible talks about. They have itching ears, whose feet are swift to mischief. Truth is not the end goal. It's whatever tickles their fancy. And we saw a lot of that last night with young Pharaoh. And I must say, I hope the brother is doing well. Whatever ails him, I hope he gets better. first, I hope he repents and turns his life over to the Most High. I have to put that out there because clearly the guidance that he's received from his Kemetic studies and his studies that have gone beyond Kemet now, right? According to him, has led him to a place where now, honestly, we really have to question his sanity. It's not even a matter of whether or not he has the right to formulate his own opinion. We have to, and I must say, it's not even considered French scholarship to a degree. I think we only got a little bit of that last night from him in dealing with the topic of the Anunnaki and the reptilian race, right? And the extraterrestrials, those that from the planet Nibiru, right? Some of these things that what's the other fellow's name? Is it Carson? Likes to get into talking about the Emerald Tablets and different things like that. A lot of pseudoscientific arguments and theories, right? A lot of Alexander Sitchin's work, right? Who really coined the term Anunnaki. We have to really take a look. And I wasn't surprised for whatever reason. It may be temporary, and it may not be. Absolutely, sister. It wasn't well. And I'm just going to tell you guys, I really didn't see the first few minutes of the interview. I was alerted that this interview was taking place and I should do my best to hurry up and tune in. And what I heard was no less than someone who is experiencing some type of psychosis. Whether you want to say it's if it's self-induced on a psychedelic level or a chemical level, right? Or whether it's a psychological, psychiatric break from reality. But and I'm going to get into some of the things that he said last night, young Pharoah. But I have an even bigger problem today because of the silence of those on the HOK and the conscious community who didn't come up or call in or even beat me to this particular commentary and say, hey, this is not good for the people, Sonetta. This is not good for the issue of normalizing as entertainment those in the Black community who suffer from mental illness. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, sister. Free spirit. It was not normal. It was not normal. But I tell you all the time, people, that there is scientific evidence, but also scriptural evidence that talks about when you give your mind and you dwell on things that are not pure, when you give your thoughts over to these fringe arguments, to these pseudoscientists that we see in the conscious community that are promoted heavily on platforms like the HOK. At some point, we have to say, hey, look, that's not normal behavior. I hear Sinetta all the time banging on the Israelites, banging on the Hebrews, banging on God, banging on Christians, and banging on this and banging on that. But what we saw last night on display was something that I would have expected those who claim to be much more honorable, including Sinetta himself, to not even have let this interview take place. So I have to question your motives on this, Sinetta. Is it really just about the bag? Is it really just about the bag? Some of the things that we heard last night from young Pharooh were both sad and incredible. And when I say incredible, I mean no credibility. No credibility. At first, I was leaning more towards maybe some chemical abuse may have been involved. But as I continue to watch, I began to see myself observing what I know in certain behaviors. I have a background in applied behavioral science. I also worked on a mental ward. So there are certain ways and certain behaviors that a person exhibits that clearly there's psychological issues that are involved. And this is what we saw on display last night, right? I believe Sinetta took the entire video down, from my understanding. Right? Some people were keen enough for commentary to forward me some of the recorded clips of last night. But I think in this community, we have to take mental illness very seriously, even to the degree of who we allow to speak to our people or to our youth who are always listening, as if they are some type of authority and that they actually have something to share. It's very dangerous to give over to that. Shalom, Sister Noble. She says the video is back up. I'm glad, because we need to really look at that and not really look at it as just simply a matter of entertainment, but what happens when you go too far? What led the young brother to this place? Because early on, when young Pharooh came on the scene, as I was watching him, I said to myself, the brother is sharp, right? He's very sharp, right? Although I didn't agree with much of his information, that's fine. We can all agree to disagree. But to see where that knowledge and what path it has taken him on to where he is now is something we have to be very mindful of when we're dealing with these issues, right? I'm going to share something with you guys. I want to read an article, right? You turn the music down just a little bit. Put it right there. We're going to read an article. And let's talk about this for a second, right? Right. This article, we'll wait till it comes up. This article is from the New York Academy of Sciences, a world-renowned organization that deals with the psychology of the human mind and the various studies that go into it. And I want to read something for you people. And this is what I'm talking about when we have people like young Pharooh and Sarah Sutanseti and Brother Polite. They come on the scene with a lot of these fantastic arguments that people are wowed by. But they're fringe scholars at best. And those who follow fringe theories, their minds, and when they read that, they inundate themselves with this type of thinking and they train their minds to view information this way. And as they began to do that, so as goes your thoughts, your thinking, so goes your actions. And they began to live out these pseudoscientific ideas. And these are one of the things that we have to be very careful of in this conscious community and who people put up before you. We have to really begin to question these things. Absolutely, Sister Noble. I want to talk about that too. I really want to look at that. If you could drop that link in the chat, Columbia University Department of Psychology, because that's a good one. But I want to read this about pseudoscience on the brain. Right? Don't think that the information you hear and you take in doesn't affect how you think, how you live your life, and the outcomes that you see in your life. And as we read this article, young Pharooh is a observable example of what they're talking about in this article. The pseudoscience on the brain. Dr. Paul Zak shares his views on the crisis in confidence in psychology, science communication, and how to differentiate between sound science and overblown hype. And a lot of times, this is what we hear coming across these airwaves. When people are talking about reptilian races and the Anunnaki and the planet Nibiru, and young Pharooh even talk about those who were living on the planet of Saturn and those who were living on the planet of Mars. Like, this is what you want to put up before the people, Sanetta? You can't just simply be about a dollar. You have to have some accountability about the information that you put up before the people. Shalom, Sosa. Shalom. Peace to you, family. We have to stop allowing these people to get up before us with this overblown hype about fringe theories, conspiracies. And when I'm not talking about things that we know that the government is doing to a degree when it comes to racism or and white supremacy in this country, those things are not only uh, covert, but they're overt. We see these things happening, but we're not seeing. Remember back in the some of y'all, I might be dating myself, but back in the I think late '80s, there was this television show called The V, right? The V, and it was these reptiles that had to leave their planet seeking water, right? Seeking water as a commodity, right, or something like that to ship back to their planet. But they also found out that later on that they just didn't come for water, offering gifts of technology, but they also didn't have a food source anymore. So they were now freezing human beings and taking human beings back with them and different things like that. And then some of the humans fell in love with the good reptiles, and then they had babies, and now you had this human reptilian baby, and she had these mystical powers, these advanced mental powers, right? And so directly taken from Alexander Sitchin's work, right? Right? His pseudoscientific, his fringe theories on the so-called Anunnaki, right? That we see Carson, and I'm going to do a video on Carson later on. Billy Carson, I believe that's his name, right? How he's gaining millions and millions, I won't say millions and millions of dollars, but he's gaining thousands of dollars, siphoning it off from the people in the black community that listens to this same type of pseudoscience. But people don't understand the effects that it has on the human psyche, this overblown hype. But let's get into it. This article is from August 2nd, 2013. Let's read what it says here. A series of unfortunate events over the last few years has sparked a crisis in confidence in the field of psychology. This introduction to an Association for Psychological Science journal dedicated to the subject details cases of research fraud, misleading statistics, questionable research practices, and downright pseudoscience. Meanwhile, scientists and journalists have expressed frustration and fatigue with claims purporting to answer grandiose questions about human nature and experience with neuroscience, right? He says a new branch of neuroscience explains everything genre may be created at any time by the simple expedient of adding the prefix neuro to whatever you're talking about, complained Stephen Poole in this emphatic New Statesman's article, Neuroeconomics is the latest in a long line. But let's get to the meat of what he's actually talking about here, right? He says, there has been a lot of commentary recently on problems with psychology and neuroscience. Let's talk about what he says. He says there's a broad area. There's a difference between what scientists do on a day-to-day basis and what gets talked about in the media. Journalists will just read an abstract or talk to the author sometimes without fully understanding the study, and there end up being some oversimplifications or generalizations. We need to be careful with how we present our work. Nothing in the brain is simple. I don't think there's any crisis in the scientific field. The field's just exploding. Like in any new area, of course, there's some bad work out there that needs to be sifted out. Confirmation is the key. But that's why we do science, to find out what's really going on. And here's what he's talking about. Here's what he's talking about. That you get people who will read something without fully understanding the ramifications of it, and then they'll come and create a whole diatribe, start a whole dialogue. They'll start a whole platform based on this fringe scholarship, this knowledge that they really have no understanding about. And what we have to deal with, is the fact that there are many in the conscious community who operate in the same way. They snatch pieces of information from here, snatch pieces of information from there, and they come back and they present it to the people as if it's fact. But the most scariest part about it is that many in the conscious community need to take some accountability, even to those who are tuning in, the listeners, because they don't go and vet the information. They simply take these people at their word. We had people in the chat over on the HOK as I was watching the interview with young Pharoah. And people were saying, wow, this guy is really sharp. This guy really gets it. This guy really has some knowledge. But are they not seeing a psychotic break here that's happening with this guy? Let's talk about some of the things that he himself alleged. Right? That he himself alleged. Young Pharoah. He talked about being a part or being involved, allegedly, in the assassination plot of Queen Elizabeth. And I believe allegedly because she was of the reptilian race. These reptilian beings who have inserted themselves in high places in government. He implicates himself in direct involvement with the death of Queen Elizabeth. But no one's going to address that in the HOK. I guarantee you, if that video comes back up, I wouldn't be surprised if all of that would be edited and redacted. He talks about his involvement with Vladimir Putin. I can't make this stuff up, family. I can't make this stuff up. I can't make it up. Fair use. I can't make it up. We can see the psychosis clearly happening. I'm just going to play a little bit of the clip. Just a little bit.
Bitch, you would never live, your kids would never live, your wife would never live, your dog would never live. Because if me and my kids can't live, you can't live. And I swear to God, nigga, I'm nicer than Korea with this combat knife. So if you run up on me, you better be ready. You better be about that life.
Come on, family. What are we doing here? What are we doing here, family? The HOK, Sonetta, you're going to be quiet on this? You should immediately be preparing to do a show on mental health in the Black community. As a matter of fact, you should have had the foreknowledge and the sincerity and the respect of the people on your platform that you hold some accountability to for the people that you bring up before them. This is not normalized, should not be normalized behavior. Mental health in the Black community is real, family. And we saw it on full display last night with young Pharoah. Listen, family, he also went on to talk about that the president of China was also after him. What is wrong with these people today? See, when I see things like this, if you claim you're for the people, this should be the first thing. We should have a whole segment on mental health. This should have been the first thing on Black News 102. Dealing with the issues of mental health. What we saw last night, people, was the very thing that destroys our communities. Poor scholarship, poor information. Young Pharooh has had a complete break with reality. A complete break with reality. And we have to be careful with the likes of Young Pharooh, the Sarah Suit Setties, the Polites. Because when you think about it, they all get on and they claim to have this hyper intelligence. No one can see it but them. Young Pharooh last night made the statement that he sent some of his debates in, his topics in, some of his debates that he wanted to have. He sent them in to professors at Yale and Harvard. And they didn't want to debate him because they were afraid to debate him. This is what he said. The professors at Yale and Harvard were afraid to debate his information. People who are involved in policy making for the not just the U.S. but the entire globe. Our legislators and lawmakers. They didn't want to debate him because his information was so overwhelming. They were afraid. And so what he does is he turns around. Hold on, family, real quick. So what he does is, family, he turns around and says, well, I tried 3 times to debate these Harvard and Yale professors, and they declined. So I'm 3-0 at Harvard and Yale. So you mean to tell me, Young Pharooh, that you get a win for shadow boxing? But you find a lot of that in the HOK. They take a lot of wins for shadow boxing. Because they refuse to debate you, you counted that as a win. Come on, family. We got to be honest about this. There's no way you can tell me that what was on display last night was not someone who has had a psychotic break, whether it's due to a chemical abuse, or whether it's a chemical imbalance of the mind in the brain. And what I'm telling you is that if you're not careful with all of this fringe scholarship and all these unfounded fake conspiracy theories and all these things that people make up and pull out they behind, you'll find yourself there too. And we find a lot of that on the HOK and in a lot of these different communities. You'll find a lot of that among these people who claim to be a part of this new comedic science, Aleister Crowley type beliefs. And I'm not afraid to see it. You see this on the Christian side. You see it on the Hebrew Israelite side. A lot of y'all talking about y'all gonna get scooped up in a spaceship, that the Most High is gonna come back and he gonna scoop you up in a spaceship. Y'all on the same page with young Pharaoh. I'm gonna just keep it a buck. You have no biblical basis for any of that crap. But then we turn around and we look at young Pharaoh last night, and he goes further. And then he talks about how Rick Ross, the rapper, who everybody in the rap game knows is as soft as cotton candy, Rick Ross, the rapper, who was a corrections officer before he became a rapper, threatened the life of his family. Another conspiracy. From Rick Ross to Vladimir Putin to Queen Elizabeth to the president of China. I can't recall his name right now. All of these people, young Pharaoh alleges, wants to take his life. And then there are many other things he talked about last night. And when asked to prove it, to show and prove, to provide the information, he goes on to talk about how someone got into his computer, possibly the CIA, got into his computer and changed his password. Come on, family. Come on, family. Shout out to you, Nyame. Shout out to you, Sister Nandy. I see you, sis. Sick 'em dogs. Peace to you, family. And y'all may say it's American culture. But clearly, in the Black community, we're dying to American culture. We need a cultural change. This is what I mean. It's becoming normal behavior to say unfounded things. And because we have an aversion in the community, in the Black community, in some of the Black community, to education, knowledge, reading, to science, technology, engineering, and math, we have an aversion to that in our communities, to reading sound knowledge and advice, proverbs, wisdom. What we see, because we have an aversion to that, what you see in the Black community and Black culture now, in a segment of it, is people who are gravitating to creating their own truths. And they'll simply say, Why listen to the scholars of old? Why listen to those who are actually studying in the field? Why actually listen to scholars? Because they simply don't speak how we speak. They don't like what we like. I will say that at some point, racism and white supremacy, and it still continues today, racism and white supremacy has done a number on us when it comes to scholarship and information. The 1600s told us that in the study of craniology, that because Neanderthals, who folks believe were the descendants of white folks, because they had larger skulls, that they made them smaller, smarter, and much more intelligent than African people or descendants of Africa because they had smaller skulls. And we know later on that science, that pseudoscience, was thoroughly debunked. My grandfather fought in World War II, and he used to tell me that even at that time, white folks believed he was a soldier. That even the white folks that was in his same infantry used to come and wanted to watch him shower naked because they wanted to see if he actually had a tail. Because where they came from in the U.S., that was part of the folklore. That was part of their understanding that black folks had tails like monkeys. And then they wanted to see his tail, so they would come and peek at him in the shower. This is just World War II we're talking about. But what we saw last night with young Pharooh was a break in reality.
Bitch, you would never live, your kids would never live, your wife would never live, your dog would never live. Because if me and my kids can't live, you can't live. And I swear to God, nigga, I'm nicer than Korea with this combat knife. So if you run up on me, you better be ready. You better be about that life.
We can't allow this. And I'm more concerned why Sarnetta himself would even think that this is better for the people than what any Hebrew or Christian that comes on his platform ever has to say. Like this is a joke. And we have to be mindful of what's put before us, people. Listen. The brother said so much last night. At first, it was funny. It was entertaining. But as we continued on, it was very sad to see, because he's a young black man, clearly dealing with, I don't necessarily know, a drug issue. I don't necessarily know that. But if he does, that's another issue, and I hope the brother gets some help. He can reach out to me. I have resources that can help. But also issues with mental health. And oftentimes, when we think people are putting on, is really them displaying a psychosis. I want to share something else with the family real quick. Right? Addressing mental health in the Black community. And shout out to Sister Noble for the source information. This is from the Columbia University Department of Psychiatry. This is by Thomas A. Vance, PhD. Roughly 37 million people identify themselves as Black or African American in the United States. From trailblazing pioneers like George Washington Carver and Dorothy Height to modern day heroes like Anita Hill and Neil deGrasse Tyson, the Black community has made enormous contributions to the ongoing fight for social, racial, and economic justice. Despite these efforts, true social justice among the Black community will remain incomplete until mental health disparities among this group are addressed. Mental health is an essential part of overall physical health and satisfaction. The Black community suffers from an increased rate of mental concerns, including anxiety and depression. The increased incidence of psychological difficulties in the Black community is related to the lack of access to appropriate and culturally responsive mental health care. Prejudice and racism inherent in the daily environment of Black individuals, and historical trauma enacted on the Black community by the medical field. Moreover, given that the Black community exists at the intersection of racism, classism, and health inequity, their mental health needs are often exacerbated and mostly unfulfilled. Issues related to economic insecurity and the associated experiences such as violence and criminal injustice further serve to compound the mental health disparities in the Black population. Research surrounding the Black community and mental health. Research suggests that the adult Black community is 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems such as major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. Additionally, Black emerging adults ages 18 to 25 also experience higher rates of mental health problems and lower rates of mental health service utilization compared to white emerging adults and older Black adults. These sobering statistics suggest that despite efforts to reduce disparities among race and class in the US, inequalities are increasing. Let me go back up here for a second. When he talks about issues related to economic insecurity and associated experiences such as violence and criminal injustice, I want to say this, and I'm saying this because of the exhibit of behavior that we witnessed last night from young Pharooh. He said this as well. I just want us to understand what you saw last night, because I don't think a lot of people actually got it. I saw a lot of references to drugs and dope and different things like that, in which these behaviors can be attributed to what we saw from young Pharooh last night. But what I saw more in depth was a mental health crisis, a young brother with a mental health crisis. And another one of the fantastic things that he said was that he was one of the best lawyers. And I could be saying this wrong, so if please somebody please correct me if I don't quote him correctly, that he was one of the best lawyers or attorneys in the country when it comes to dealing with the issues that ail Black America. in Black Americans, that he was one of the best attorneys. Showing no evidence of any cases he's litigated. Showing no knowledge and understanding of jurisprudence. Showing no juris doctorates. Not even an LLM. Not even saying that you even have to have all that to be a great legal mind. But simply offering what likens to jailhouse scholarship. Is unfathomable. And for the HOK Sinetta to allow that to go on, we have to be leery and concerned about the information, and more guarded about the information that's put before us. We really do have to deal with that. We really must deal with these issues. Like, I really wanted to come on here, man, and really go in and really clown the brother. I really did want to do that. But as I continue to watch the video clips and go over and have conversations and go over some of the things that the brother was saying, he's not in touch with reality. And I'm questioning why Sinetta did not have the wherewithal to end the video. Like, these are things that we have to take into full account. You're more than welcome, Sister Noble. There's the link for you, sis. And this is why I wanted to start this particular podcast outside of my other podcasts, to really deal with understanding and breaking down these fringe theories, these pseudoscience, and the mental health issues that are being swept under the rug or laid over in these communities, especially in the Black community. We have to take into serious account why our so-called gatekeepers who are always talking about how bad the Bible is for our people, we have to ask them why, if they're the gatekeepers against the Bible being taught to our people, why are they not the gatekeepers against this fringe scholarship and pseudoscience that they're putting out before our people, allowing people who clearly have mental health issues to speak over your people and on your platforms with some semblance of authority? as if these are the people we should be gleaning knowledge from. You're welcome to come on, Sister Noble. We have to understand why these things are necessary to evaluate. Like it was sad to see. The panel is open for anyone who wants to join the panel for a few moments. We have to talk about why these things are bad for our community. Even much so why this display of mental illness from young Pharoah last night, and that's what I'm going to call it. That should be the hot issue, the hot topic for today in this particular community. But because of the personality worship and even the lack of understanding and the importance of how mental health affects our community is often overlooked, is often ignored, as we just read in the Columbia University article. Peace to you, Sister Noble.
Peace. So I wanted to come up and address your topic.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I was at church last night, where I addressed the congregation on the impact of mental illness in the Black community. And I just wanted to share what I also shared with the church. Okay.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to be reading, from my notepad here. When it comes to mental illness, much of our problem is a spiritual problem. Okay. Right. Much of our problem is a spiritual problem. And let me explain. Okay. According to the Columbia University Department of Psychiatry, 1 in 3 Black Americans seek mental health care. Columbia also said that 40% of Black Americans make up the homeless population, 50% make up the prison population, and 45% of Black children are in the foster care system. According to Columbia, mental illness affects half of the Black community. In my opinion, although some of these other problems are linked to mental health, some of these cases of prison incarceration, homelessness, and Black children in foster care are linked to lack of resources and lack of access to opportunities and generational wealth, as well as the environment itself. Although some of us have come from harsh environments, all of us don't end up in prison. All of us don't end up on drugs. All of us don't end up succumbing to our environment. When it comes to mental illness, many cases are linked to a chemical imbalance in the brain, but there are those anomalies. And those anomalies are mental illness that is caused by demonic influence and demonic possession. Mental illness is a vexation of spirit. Okay? Mental illness is a vexation of spirit. A mentally healthy person versus the brain of a mentally ill person. When a person is mentally healthy, they tend to make better choices for their personal well-being, and it ain't always got to do with finances or personal success in terms of your career. When a person is in a good mental space, that is not suffering from some form of a mental illness, they tend to be more forgiving. They tend to make better choices or decisions that are not detrimental to their physical self and or salvation of themselves. They tend to want to make peace with everybody as much as possible. Because really, when you're content with yourself, or you're happy with yourself, or feeling good mentally, you tend to not want to be engaging in a lot of nonsense, because you're going to want to be at peace with everybody. You're going to want to be at peace with people as much as possible. And you're going to be more forgiving. You're not going to want to walk around with a lot of grudge and hatred, because you're in a happy space. You're feeling fulfilled, and therefore you're going to want to maintain that happy space and peace of mind as much as possible. Mental illness equals vexation of spirit. It also equals moral deficiencies. In other words, a person who suffers from mental illness tend to engage in risky behavior. They tend to become addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they engage in behaviors that are abnormal. Okay, this is what I shared with the church last night at Friday Night Bible Study. And we had a discussion about mental illness that impacts the Black community disproportionately compared to our counterparts. Okay, so I just wanted to share this because I think this is a topic we should be focused more on, you know, in the coming days ahead, in the coming weeks and months ahead, because it's a lot of people that are being affected, whether directly or indirectly, when it comes to mental illness, because they said only one in three Black Americans seek mental health care.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
That's a crisis. That's a crisis.
Exactly. That's a
almost
crisis.
an epidemic level.
Yes. I agree. So I you know, thank you, brother, for coming up here. You know, I had began doing a few videos since the debate between Tazariak and Shaka regarding mental illness.
Yes, you have. I've been
and you know, yeah, because we're all impacted by it, whether you suffer from it or not. You're still being impacted somehow, some way. People keeping up drama in your family. Every time you look around, somebody going to jail, somebody, you know, in the household drinking and drugging and just disrupting the entire household. We all dealing with something, whether directly or indirectly.
Absolutely.
And we all need to acknowledge if you are having some sort of mental health care crisis, you need to acknowledge that. Don't try and act like there's nothing wrong there, when you know that you are dealing with some sort of mental illness or a mental health crisis. You know, so I just wanted to share that. I gotta go eat. You know, I haven't ate all day, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely get you something to eat. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I really hope you come back and share more information on mental health. Years ago, I was going to do something on mental health with Sister Nepal. We didn't ever get around to doing it, but I definitely would love to have you come on and talk about this, because all of us know someone within our family, around us, a co-worker, someone who's dealing, especially in the Black community, who's dealing with this issue. And and as you said before, I'm glad you even brought this out in your church congregation, because it needs to be shared in those spaces. Because a lot of times I tell people there's a fine line in scripture when we talk about the man who was healed or who was the demons was cast out of him, and he called himself Legion. Right?
That's what we talked about also last night.
Versus what we call today schizophrenia, right? So a lot of that stuff we really have to really take a serious look at. So I'm really glad you came on and shared that. And you're welcome anytime to come back. And like I said, I'm always reading your commentaries and comment. I enjoy the information you post. I appreciate anybody that actually studies, whether I agree with it or not. But anybody that studies, I'm with you. We could talk all day. So keep doing what you're doing, Sister Noble. I'm with you. Definitely come on again. Let's say, hey, Brother Yara, you want to, I want to share some things about mental health. You got some time to set something up. Let's do it and get it done. I welcome that. because we definitely need to talk about this even more.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
So,
do.
so shalom, peace, and bless to you, sister.
Shalom.
All right, get
Have
something
a
to
great
eat.
day.
You too as well. And Nyame, my brother.
Peace, Paul. We're good.
Peace to you, family. What's good? What's good, man? Long time no
Everything's
see.
good.
Good.
Yeah. Have you? Am I coming in clear?
Yeah, you coming in really clear, man. Really clear.
Yeah. This is a topic our family talks about a lot.
Okay.
My wife is in the field. She's in the field, so
Okay.
that's kind of one of her things. She always brings up is nobody talks about mental health issues. She
Yeah.
constantly brings it up. She said, "How can y'all be a conscious community and nobody talks about mental health?"
She's right.
But it's a serious issue. It's like one of my favorite teachers is Amos Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about the in particular the violence in the black community,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with young black men, and then our late ancestor Bobby Wright
Mm-hmm.
talks about menticide. And this was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 80s, he talks about the growing crisis of, this is late 70s, early 80s before he passed, the crisis of mental health in the black community. That's way back then. And I've never heard anybody really try to address it. So it's an issue that I'm going to say when we was coming out of slavery, it's been here. And we never directly dealt with. We've learned how to survive with it, but I think it's got to a point now to where it's beginning to destroy our culture, destroy our youth, because it's such a large issue that we completely ignore.
Yeah.
I don't say that I have any of the answers, but I know that it's a problem. And you might hear me laugh, but I'm not laughing because I'm laughing at young Pharooh.
Right.
But
right.
I'm just laughing at the situation. Like, we can see that there's something really wrong.
Yes.
Like, if he was standing on a street corner, we probably would give him money because like, man, this man then lost his mind.
Yeah.
He was all over the place.
Yes.
All over the place.
Yes.
And Senator as an elder should have been able to pick up on it, but because he was looking at the numbers. The numbers were good. The audience was good. That's the only thing he's gonna focus on.
Right.
And then you use the word, consciousness, the house of consciousness. That's a deception.
Very much a deception.
Yeah. All he sees, man, this guy bringing in the numbers. I'm gonna have more. Yeah.
Yep. All he sees was the bag, and that was my whole point for doing this. Because when I initially was alerted to it, I was like, okay, well, let me go over here and take a look. And like I said, people would say, hey, look, you need to watch that. You need to watch what's going on right now. And so initially, I watched it and I was laughing because I'm thinking, okay, yeah, the guy's putting on. But as I continued to watch it and observe his behavior, I said, no, this is not just a substance abuse issue. I don't believe. I was like, this is a clear chemical imbalance. This is a psychotic break. This is what we call, spiritual side of Sister Noble talk about. This is a spiritual attack, and that's one of the things that he even brought up, which I thought was very telling. He talked about the correlation between demon and demonstration and I'm like, yeah, a lot of that is what you're experiencing right now. And as I was telling Sister Noble, a lot of what, when I read the biblical text, a lot of times, we could see a lot of these things you know, people would have been diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia. You know, with a lot of these things that Christ, when it says he cast out the demon, the man was sleeping in the graveyard, cutting himself, right?
Mhm.
Today, that's a diagnosable mental illness when we have
Right.
that behavior. And I've worked in mental wards where I've seen it corrected with the right chemicals, drugs, right, or psychiatric care, right. I've seen that behavior stopped, right, without nobody coming in, laying hands on them or praying for them. And y'all, man, you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
see them
Right.
being able to be productive just being placed on the drugs. Now, people can make an argument, and I might even stand with them and say, well, hey, look, that's the Most High's knowledge showing us how to treat this through natural or well, a lot of that stuff they were giving them wasn't natural. Those was designer drugs
Right.
that they created for something else, and they found out quash this type of behavior. So they prescribed it as a drug treatment.
Right.
So I've
Right.
witnessed this.
Right. My experience, I've seen it in 3 different fields. I've seen it in what they call traditional medicine, the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom, when I was coming up, they would have Friday night, Saturday night, all the way into Sunday. I forgot what they used to call it, but it was just the all night prayer that
Oh yeah, they had a shut in.
you bring. Yeah, you bring in your family member, and they Terry, they were Terry.
Terry in service.
Terry,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they won't stop praying until you was free. You wasn't leaving out of there like you came in.
No,
now you might go back out and get back into it, but you wasn't leaving.
You wasn't leaving
until you was delivered or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I've seen, listen, and I agree with you, Nyame, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've witnessed that. Like I've witnessed that. And whether you want to say it's spiritual or some type of mental trance, or because you can go back in some African cultures and see them sort of practicing this same type
I was gonna bring that up too.
Yeah.
They didn't have that. They didn't have that in American Christianity until, voodoo and the voodoo circles or people where you break the people out of their spells.
Yeah.
That kind of ritual was brought into the church. But I was saying all that to say that there was people who really cared about the community. Like if you say you was a spiritualist or a spiritual person, you was in the community trying to heal the people. It was about healing and health and protection of the family and the children. Now the spirituality now, and this is what me and my wife talk about. The spirituality now is all about the person.
That's right.
How can I use this spell to get more money or cast a love spell or put a curse upon somebody? Right. Where are the healers?
Right.
Where are the healers? Absolutely. You don't hear about that. You don't see it. And I think Noble just brought it out. You don't hear people talk about the love of the family and the community and things like forgiveness.
That's right.
And forgiving people when they do you wrong. You don't hear it. It's all about revenge and retaliation. And I can remember late at night, my mom would come in the room. She put the olive oil and she said, I cast away the spirits of retaliation and revenge. Anybody trying to attack my son, revenge and retaliation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a form of I'm never going to let this go until I see you suffer.
That's right.
And that's what we have in black circles. Somebody do you wrong, I'm going to attack you until you suffer, until I destroy you.
That's right. That's right.
But the forgiveness part and the moving forward and the healing, that's gone.
Yeah, it is. It is. It absolutely is. And because again, as Sister Noble was saying, and as we're talking about now, a lot of those, a lot of that is because there's a breakdown in even the matriarchal system that we have in place. Because as you said, your
Yeah.
grandmother, my mother, you know, my father, my father is a is a pastor. Um, and you know, they were, you know, we grew up in the church. I grew up on, in, you know, sort of both sides of the street with the, you know, Israelite thing and as well as the Christian side. But the matriarchs of the family is what held those things, is what held those families together, right?
Yeah.
And what we have done is in that society, we we've allowed the power of the matriarchs to become a novelty or almost non-existent, right? Where now they're called weak, or they're called mules, or they're called something else.
Mammies. Yeah.
Mammy,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the word I'm talking about. They're called that to diminish their wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and even the most and even the most important part, the most important power of the matriarchal system, that women's intuition,
Yeah.
that power that will say, while that mom's sitting at home, that would get her to leave up out, put her house coat on and her slippers on and walk down the block because she feels someone right with her son, and finds him laying
Right.
around the corner bleeding from a gunshot wound. I've seen that happen with my own eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
I
seen,
mean, I
I've
experienced
witnessed that.
myself. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the mother say, they say, how did you find him? She said, I felt my son was in trouble, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
and so we've allowed not just the role of the patriarchal society, which I believe has been attacked, but also taken out of its place. But also the matriarchal system has been attacked even today, even more so than the male patriarchy, I will say, and is being taken out of its place, and out of its place of healing, out of its place of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. It's a reason why in the scriptures that wisdom is referred to in the feminine essence, right? The scripture says, "What? Who could search the deep things of the Most High, other than wisdom?" Right? And so
Right.
it's this understanding, what some people call Sophia. It's this understanding that we've really lost in our communities, because if the men wasn't getting right, I don't care how much of a drunkard your uncle, your cousin, your brother, your daddy was. If mama was strong and grandmama was strong, she'll get him straight.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
household wouldn't fail. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because everybody respected what mama said. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so,
Right.
and so we've lost that sensibility of power, right? We lost that sensibility of power in our household when it comes to the matriarchal system and importance of it. And I don't have to say that, you know, I don't have to say the woman is God to say that we know that's missing. You see what I'm saying? That we know
Right.
that
Right.
wisdom and knowledge and understanding is missing from our home. It's like that's who kept the children in line. When your dad was out at the factories working, and that's who kept the children in line, right? So,
Right.
you know, when your daddy get home, it was just something double you got, but mama had already taken care of it, you know.
Right. Right. But you got it on her word.
Exactly, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Junior didn't listen to me today.
Yeah.
So you need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, mom is ratting me out.
Man, I'm telling you, I would rather my mom take care of me right then and there than her to say, that's okay. I'm gonna tell your daddy when I get home. Because my daddy say, oh, you gave your mama a hard time? You gave your mother a hard time? Man, please. anything but you gave your mama a hard time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? My dad was a great father, and we could almost get past, he can almost understand anything because we were boys. I have 3 brothers, 4 of us, and I have a baby sister. And so, boys would be boys. We'd be doing some stuff, man. But anything, and sometimes he just laugh and say, boy, y'all crazy. But as soon as she say, I'm gonna tell your daddy, or she be like, Sonny, these boys did this. Oh, you ain't do what your mama say? Oh, man. Oh, man, you can forget about it. You can forget about it. He wasn't asking no questions after that. Because he knew what the backbone of that family was.
Right. And so when you talk about mental health, you're talking about that feminine principle.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kin to a loving mother nurturing the baby.
Right.
That's the principle.
Right.
And so when you remove that, that has been taken out of our culture and replaced with the get the bag culture. Mm-hmm. The only thing that is important is economics, and man, that has been a detriment.
Yes, I agree.
I think that's one of the biggest contributions. Like I've been studying what's called American apartheid. And American apartheid, a lot of people don't, we call it segregation and Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
And they purposely put us in these ghettos, and that they knew that didn't have enough resources.
That's right.
It didn't have enough resources. And then it exacerbated a problem that was already within the community.
Right.
And I'm not putting everything on white supremacy, because ultimately it's us who's got to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't put people in these concrete and brick communities and think you're going to have healthy people. It's an unnatural environment.
Right.
The inner cities, they're unnatural environments, and our recourse was get the money. What else is there to do but to go out and get the money? But today is even worse because the economy is so bad. I was looking at an article about California that said, and I grew up in California. California was a beautiful place to grow up. Beautiful place to grow up. But now it says Black people in California are the most unhappiest. Even though they might be making $70,000 a year, to be comfortable, you need to make about $140,000. The economy is really, really bad. And so that is affecting people's mental health, because our entire life was built around, we always going to have upward mobility. Your money is always going to grow. Nobody really told us about the ebbs and flows of an economy. Sometimes it's going to be good. Sometimes it's going to be bad. How do we deal with this as a community? Not just as an individual, as a community. And we're not dealing with these issues as a community.
Right. We're not. And one of the and just to go back to one of the points you were bringing out earlier, talking about nurturing. I think that because of the failure of a lot of the patriarchal rule or society, especially in the Black community, that we fostered for so long, because of the failure of it, we've come to find that the matriarchs, the women, have had to take on a more seemingly masculine role, and because of that, they the that natural nurturing feminine aspect has somewhat become diminished because of it, and it has affected our children with the way that we see how they relate uh, 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 to the mothers and to our sisters and to our daughters and to our wives and different things like that. Women now are often talking about, say, look, men, we want more men want more feminine women, but they've had to take on the role because of being single mothers, right? And I know the statistics. I trust me. I know all of the favoring statistics about black men and their children. I know all the favoring statistics, but still, to the degree that women have had to take on so many unnecessary roles necessarily, um, to keep their children safe and to even further to keep their families intact. So a lot of these things, as you were talking about as well, like chasing the money and needing money, and so this need to have more money, right? Um, in order just to live, as you said, comfortably, right? Is what a lot of people are on, right? They want to be a boss this and a boss that, and they want to they want to be able to, and they use money to exert power now, right? And while competing in a masculine uh, 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 society, right? So it's a lot that we have to deal with. Mental health is definitely an issue. We definitely need to speak more about. We all know someone who's dealing with someone that has mental challenges, and like I said, man, just like what I saw last night, man, I wanted, my initial thought was to just come on and just go in and just roast the guy. But like I said, as I continue to look at it, I'm like, this is not normal. This is not normal behavior. It's not something that should be presented to the people as if it's normal behavior or even entertaining. Like, we have to be more mindful of where we are, man. So I'm gonna let you get the last word, and Nyame. I'm getting ready to close out, man. I've been up for an hour and a half, so I didn't want to be on too long. I got to get to my own son, and hey, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. And like I said, man, any of these topics, man, I'm willing to come on, man, fire up, man, and just have these conversations in depth, because we do need to have them more, right? And like I tell people, man, the scripture talks about when people ask you for if someone asks you for a loaf of bread, if your father, if you ask your father for a loaf of bread, would he give you a stone, right? And sometimes I think we do that with people even reading, from the Bible, and wanting to, preach to them and teach to them, when what they really need is services and help, right? Um, and so, we just, I'm trying to be more mindful and cognizant of those things uh, as we move forward, because these issues in mental health, man, in our communities are not going away. Are not going away.
All right, peace, y'all. Yeah, it was a good topic. Yeah, hope you have some more of these. And I just want to say, yeah, that young Pharaoh definitely it's something not right. And I think in the coming years or two, we're gonna really see, unless he gets help. we're just going to see him spiral out of control. So keep having good topics. I appreciate you having this piece.
Hey man, it's always good, man, to have you on. And so peace and blessings to you, man. Peace and blessings to your wife, man, and to your family as well. Yeah, peace, family. So what I'm going to do as I close this out, I am going to put going across the screen right now is the U.S. National Suicide Prevention and Lifeline. And it's also admit they deal with mental health as well. So I'm going to place this in the chat as well. Mental health. If anybody needs that. We have to deal with these things. But again, man, signing out, man. Peace and blessings to y'all, family. And Shabbat Shalom.